Hey guys, in today's video I present to you another installment of the most hilarious phonies or non-words that have ever stayed on tournament Scrabble boards. I know it's been a little while since I've done one of these, and many of you have been eagerly waiting, so I appreciate your patience and hope this video will live up to your expectations. For the first example of today's video, we're going to be looking at the final round of the inaugural Collegiate Scrabble Championship held earlier this year in my hometown of Lexington, Kentucky. It was a super fun event, and it was no surprise to see the event's top seeds, Zach Ansell and James Donnelly, both strong experts, battling it out in a winner-take-all final round for the title of Collegiate Scrabble Champion. Things were going Zach's way. He had just played Family for 54 points to take a 94-point lead. And James, now on turn, held EHLORRS, and he realized at this point that he was lost, because the bag was empty, he was going to have no more chances to fish for a bingo, and he had no playable bingos on this turn. So, with the outcome of the game, and thus the championship decided, James decided to have a little fun. And to that end, he extended Zach's play of Family to Family Horser for 72 points. Now, this doesn't sound like a word because it isn't a word, but here's the hilarious part, guys. Zach actually cannot challenge this if he has even the slightest shadow of a doubt about the play's validity. Because let's say Zach somehow challenges and this play comes back valid. Well, then Zach is going to lose his turn, and with 10 points on his rack of AHINORS, after James plays his remaining L, James is going to get a 20-point bonus. That'll bring James to 438, so he would only need 3 points for his L to win the game, and it's not too hard to see that James would be able to score more than that. He can score 5 by playing ALP between the A of Ixia and the P of Pest, which would result in a 3-point win for James. So, as such, since, again, margin of victory doesn't matter one bit for Zach here, he just has to win the game, Zach decides to let this absurdity stay on the board and responds with Horn for 20 points. Not his strongest endgame play here, but easily enough to secure the victory. James plays out with Lore for 6, and Zach ends up winning the game by 30, 460 to 430, and becoming the inaugural Collegiate Scrabble Champion. But not without letting Family Horser stay on a tournament Scrabble board. Our next example comes from a game played between veteran experts Stefan and Dustin Dean at a one-day tournament held in New Jersey last year. Dustin, holding a rack of AEEHOT blank, somewhat surprisingly has no valid bingos. But Dustin doesn't let that stop him. He bingos with Take Ho for 72 points under the P of Piani, and amazingly, this phony goes unchallenged. And not only that, Stefan quickly exacts revenge by phonying with Wyve, W-Y-V-E, another non-word for 39 points, and this, just like Takeo, stays on the board, so both players trade invalid words. And it gets better, because towards the end of the game, in this position, Stefan decides to grab 24 points by pluralizing Dustin's earlier phony of Takeo to make Tejos and Nazis, which Dustin does not challenge. So now Stefan retakes the lead. And it gets better yet, because Dustin responds with DE for 18, retaking the lead by 2, and here, now holding the extremely ugly IIILLO, Stefan phonies for the third time of the game with violi, as in the plural of violus. Now, mind you, violus is also not a word. This scores 16 points. And now Dustin is in a quandary, because if he challenges and somehow violi is a word, then he's going to lose, because Stefan gets another turn, plays out with his I and his L, and wins the game easily. So Dustin does some math and decides to let this stay on the board, because he sees he can go out with Eel for 12 points, bringing him to 384, and then Dustin goes on to win the game by 2, 388 to 386, despite getting out-phonied by Stefan 3-1 in this game. Now, if you think that last game had a lot of egregious phonies, then just wait till you see this game played in Division 3 of the 2019 North American Scrabble Championships between Joe Gatz and Evan Yurko. The game started pretty harmlessly, with Joe opening with Vig and Evan dropping his cue with Chief for 11, but now on Joe's second turn, the phonying began. Joe bingoed with Potatoes for 71 points, hooking Viga, and Evan didn't challenge this phony, in part because he recognized this rack as making a valid 7, but he just couldn't remember what it was and thought maybe it could be potatoes. It turns out the word that he was thinking of was teapots, which would have played in the same spot for the same score. But like I said, Joe played potatoes and got away with it, so that is the first phony of the game. Just a few turns later, Evan would exact revenge. Holding this rack, he played whimpers for 94 points, hooking the S to make veloces. Now, both of these words, guys, are phonies. Whimpers needs an H between the W and the I, and veloce is an adverb. It's a kind of musical direction and cannot be pluralized. So Evan gets down 2 phonies on a single play, more than exacting his revenge, and this stays on the board, and just like that, Evan jumps back into the lead. But we're not done yet, guys, because fast forward a couple more turns, after Evan's valid bingo of Tarrulé, Joe responds with Tarrif, Tarrif, for 37 points. Now, this is not how you spell the real word tariff, which has a single R and 2 Fs, but Evan didn't notice this on time. Evan states that he did notice, but not until after Joe had drawn his replacement tiles from the bag, and at that point the rules of Scrabble say that you are not allowed to challenge, so this stayed on the board. And when all was said and done, Joe would end up eking this game out by 2 points, 451 to 449. But as an aside, the bizarreness of this game didn't actually end there, because while Joe mathematically won this game 451 to 449, that is not the final score these players had and submitted at the tournament. This game was actually submitted as a 457 to 446 win. And not for Joe, for Evan. So Evan was recorded as having won this game by 11 points, but the correct math would have dictated Joe winning the game by 2, and the players never recounted the game, so Evan actually ended up winning this game that he should never have won in the first place. And how these players managed to misadd so egregiously to have Evan's score too low by 8 points and Joe's score too high by 5 points will probably forever remain a mystery. But in any case, absolutely wild stuff. Our next example comes from a game played at the 2024 Niagara Falls International Open between up-and-coming player Skyler Lutz and veteran tournament player Anna Moransky. Now, there's a rule in Scrabble that states anytime someone wins a National Scrabble Championship, their last name gets added to the Scrabble dictionary. And that is why, in this position, Skyler decided to play Fagin for 30 points from the F of Telford's in honor of 2022 Scrabble Players Champion Michael Fagin. Okay, I'm joking. That's not actually a rule. But it is indeed true that Skyler did play Fagin in this position, and his opponent failed to challenge it off the board, so Skyler did indeed get away with the name of a past North American Scrabble champion. Now, speaking of North American Scrabble champions, we're going to close out the video with 2 hilarious phonies that the defending North American Collins Scrabble champion Josh Castellano got away with. These are both going to be from Collins games, so it's worth mentioning that it's even more difficult, guys, to get away with a phony in Collins than it is in NWL. Because in NWL, you lose a turn for an incorrect challenge, whereas in Collins, you only lose 5 points, not a turn, for an incorrect challenge. And especially at the expert level, a loss of a turn is a far steeper penalty than just 5 points, so people tend to be more eager to challenge words they're not sure of in Collins. However, that was not the case in the 2 examples I'm about to show you. Josh here was playing veteran expert Jason Ubika, and Jason opened with Hugh for 12 points. Josh had 2 more U's, as well as the 5 consonants D, F, H, L, T. Certainly not a great opening rack. Now, the best play that the computer suggests here is Thud for 18 points, keeping FLU. But Josh finds something even better. He gets rid of both of his U's for a nice score of 23 points with Hewed and Duluth, keeping just his F. And Jason doesn't challenge this. However, Duluth is not an acceptable Scrabble word. And Josh mentions he was really sure this was a word, so what was he thinking of? Well, my best guess is Duluth is a fairly sizable city in Minnesota as well as in Georgia, so maybe Josh has found his way to Duluth, Minnesota or Duluth, Georgia at some point, and that got into his head. Josh, if you're watching this video, let us know if that's the case. If that's not the case, who knows? But in any case, he got away with it. Our final example of today's video comes from a game played between Josh and another National Scrabble champion, this time 2014 winner Conrad Bassett-Bouchard. Josh found himself in a pretty challenging position early on in this game, down over 40 points, holding a dreadful rack with 2 O's and 2 V's. But he didn't let that stop him from scoring 32 points, with Volvo making the Collins only 2 of IO. However, Volvo, while it is a well-known manufacturer of cars, is not valid in either Scrabble dictionary. And amazingly, Conrad does not challenge this off the board, and Josh manages to not only score 32, but get rid of all of his clunky tiles from his rack. So there you have it, guys. Josh manages to get away with 2 rather ridiculous proper nouns, even in the more lenient 5-point challenge realm of the Collins Dictionary. Pretty wild stuff to cap off a pretty wild video filled with really wild phonies. So hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry again for the delay in making another phonies video, but I do hope it was worth it. Let me know if you want to see more of these in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Really appreciate your support. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, or leaving a comment or like. Really appreciate the support. Really helps grow the channel. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all soon for the next video. Bye-bye.